At long last, we've finally got our first look at the Acolyte. Hello everyone and welcome to Star Wars Archives. Today's video is just going to be a breakdown pretty much of the brand new trailer we've got for the Acolyte just after my first few watches. I'm going to get straight into it, but I just want to say before I start that if you do enjoy this video and you want to see anything more Star Wars, I'll be covering the Acolyte as soon as it comes out and the Bad Batch every week at the moment. Then please do leave some support, whether that's just a like or a comment or by subscribing. Already in this first shot we can see how good the sets look. They look pretty much practical to me. I'm not sure whether they use the volume or how much they use the volume within the show, but it definitely looks better than some of the shots we saw in season 3 of The Mandalorian and Kenobi, in my opinion. We can already see how good they look like the prequel sets. They're not, exactly the same, because obviously this is 100 to 200 years before. I believe around 125 is what I'm seeing online. But definitely promising stuff. We see our first look at our sort of main Jedi that I believe we're going to be seeing throughout the series. His name is Sol. He's walking past all these younglings, and we can see him pretty much recite what Obi-Wan Kenobi said in episode 4 to Luke by saying, "Your eyes can deceive you, we must not trust them." Which, once again, all good, promising stuff. It means it shows the writers actually know about the series, they know what they're talking about. We might get like some actual links to lore, and there won't just be more plot holes and stuff that doesn't make sense like we've seen with some of the Disney Plus stuff, because some of it's been really good, but I think everyone can agree not everything that Disney has done since they've been making these Disney Plus shows have been perfect. But like I said, this is at least a good start. Next up, we get our first look at one of our main antagonists, which is May. We don't really know a whole lot about May, and all the Star Wars databanks tells us is that she gets swept up into a sinister mystery, and one that puts her into the centre of a conflict in unexpected ways. What I assume is going to happen is she just starts off as maybe an assassin, not quite a bounty hunter, but we can clearly see later in this trailer she's trying to kill Jedi. But later in the story, she might get, as it says, swept up into stuff with maybe dark side acolytes. I don't know how much of the actual Sith we're going to see. Maybe towards the end of the show, or maybe just hinted, but definitely swept up into some sort of conflict with the Jedi. We also get another look at Jedi Master Sol, who's clearly been the one instructing these younglings or teaching them lessons. He looks great, to be honest with you. He just looks so cool. He's got the High Republic robes on, the white and the gold, and I'm very excited because he seems to look like he's going to be very powerful in the show. Next we see our assassin May just walking through what seems to be some kind of bar maybe, or a restaurant. The main thing I want to talk about here is just how good the aliens look and how nice it actually is to have aliens in Star Wars. In so many of the shows, I feel like it's just so many humans, and as much as it's easier and it's cheaper, because obviously you can't cast actual aliens, it just makes you feel so much more immersed, just like the prequels and the originals did, and I feel like it's something that's been definitely missing recently. As she walks through this restaurant, we get our first look at Jedi Master Indara, who obviously we can assume from the next shot that she's been contracted perhaps to assassinate. Now we get to see our first bit of action in the trailer, as it's actually some hand-to-hand combat, which we don't see very often from Jedi in the Star Wars universe. I'd assume she's clearly been caught off guard here. She hasn't had time to withdraw her lightsaber. But yeah, the choreography looks pretty impressive to me, better than most of the stuff we've had recently. And after Jedi Master Indara force pushes May, we get a better look at her for the first time. Then we hear a voiceover from someone saying someone is killing Jedi. I believe this voiceover is from a Jedi called Yord, who we see in the next shot, who's actually wielding a yellow lightsaber. But whilst this voiceover's going on, I believe we see May again here, who's actually snuck up on what seems to be a Jedi and is about to assassinate him. I assume he's going to wake up and react, as it looks like he's just meditating, and most Jedi should be able to sense that, but maybe if May is force sensitive, then she's clouding with the darkness perhaps. Whatever happens, it'll be interesting to see if we actually see this man get stabbed on screen, as Disney can sometimes be funny about showing that sort of stuff. But back to that shot from before, next to Yord, we can actually see what I believe is his Padawan Jeki, who is some sort of alien whose race I can't seem to tell. Followed by a shot of 8 Jedi who seem to be standing over some sort of cliff face where I don't know what planet they're on, but it looks very cool. And in the bottom right, you can actually see what a lot of people are assuming is Master Plo Koon. Now, it would add up if he's alive, because by the time of the Phantom Menace, or I believe Revenge of the Sith, he's about 385 years old, which would put him at around 260 around the time of the Acolyte. And although it would be cool to see him in the show, I believe it's probably just another Keldor, which is also cool. Keldor is his species after all, and we haven't seen any of them in live action since I believe Revenge of the Sith. We then get to see a Wookiee Jedi who goes by the name of Kel Naka, I believe. We don't really get to see too much about him from the Star Wars databanks, but it's definitely cool to have a Jedi Wookiee on screen in live action. Following that, we see Jedi Master Soul doing a Jedi mind trick on what I assume is one of maybe perhaps a witness from one of the murders of a different Jedi that they've started to investigate. Then we see more of May doing hand-to-hand combat with a Jedi. This time it's with Soul. Shows us that she's got to be pretty capable. And so far she's gone up against 2 different Jedi Masters, and that's all we've seen in the trailer so far. And I mean, she doesn't even seem to have a weapon in her hands, and she's obviously holding her own. Next up, we see an elder Jedi Master, Vanestra Rao, who is from the High Republic books that have already been released. Now, myself, I haven't read too much. I've read a little bit here and there, and I'm definitely going to get more involved with the books as the Acolyte's coming out, and it looks to be really good. But from what I can see here, she had a purple-bladed lightsaber that can change into a light whip, and I mean, if we get to see that in live action, that's going to be so cool. But it's nice to have a character from the books here, from the people who have read the books. You know, they can see that this is one big universe. It's almost like when we get Ahsoka in live action and Rex and stuff like that. It's that same sort of level. The next notable shot we see in the trailer is of Mother Anisea, who is a leader of a coven of witches. Now, I don't believe we've seen these witches before in any books or anything like that, but it's definitely interesting to get another faction on screen, which I assume will be somewhat Force sensitive or will have their own type of the Force. The databanks doesn't really say whether she works for the Jedi or the Sith, or whether they're somewhere in the middle, but it'll definitely be interesting to see, especially as the only witches we've seen so far is the Night Sisters, and she doesn't seem to be a Night Sister by the looks of her. The next shot we see is of a ship crashing, and I believe it's a Jedi starfighter, despite the fact we can only see half the ship because obviously it's, you know, destroyed. But I believe it's the Jedi starfighter that Anakin had in the 2003 Clone Wars show, which is a really cool throwback, to be honest, because I don't think we've seen that ship design at all since then, and honestly it's one of my favourites. Next we see May on some sort of island, and she seems to be approaching what I assume is her master. Now what I find interesting here is, by the looks of the body type, it isn't really the same sort of type as Darth Plagueis nor Darth Tenebrous, which makes me think that she's not with the Sith and it's probably some sort of Acolyte. I also believe that she might be on Acto here, the planet from The Last Jedi and the end of The Force Awakens. So I'm not sure if we'll see any of the Prime Jedi stuff, perhaps, that was on the floor in The Last Jedi. And finally, in the money shot of the trailer, we see our group of Jedi standing together, with Sol, Yord and Jackie all standing there. Then out of the woods, a red lightsaber is thrown, cutting through all the trees on the way by, and into either the Sith or the dark side user's hand. Now, this isn't May, in my opinion. I think if she had a lightsaber, she would have been using it in earlier scenes. But in reaction to that, all of our Jedi ignite their lightsabers with blue, green, and even orange, and they're all standing there, obviously ready to take on this threat. But then out of nowhere, a massive force push knocks all of them over. Honestly, this was so cool. But I do think, once again, it's kind of hard to tell whether this is a Sith or not, because the Jedi haven't seen the Sith in what Ki-Adi-Mundi says was a millennium. So if this is Plagueis or Tenebrous, then none of these Jedi would survive. And because they wouldn't be able to tell the tale, basically. And I don't know if Disney would kill off all of these, so I'm thinking it could be some sort of Acolyte. But if it is an Acolyte, they have to be very powerful, because, I mean, to push over all those Jedi, including Sol, who is a Jedi Master, it would have to be someone very in tune with the Force. But nevertheless, this is such a cool shot, and if we're going to see a Sith take on what seems to be 6, 7 or 8 Jedi at the same time, it's going to be one of the coolest things we've seen in Star Wars ever. But that was everything I picked up just from my first watch of this Acolyte trailer that we've got. I think it doesn't give away a whole lot, but it's definitely going to build some excitement, especially with that red lightsaber at the end. It's a little bit up in the air because they advertise this as a Sith show, but 90% of the stuff we see in this trailer is of the Jedi. So I don't know if it's going to be a 50-50 story, or we're going to follow the Jedi, but it's actually about how the Sith start to rise to power a little bit. But either way, I'm looking forward to this show so much. We see at the end that it's going to be a 2-episode premiere on June the 4th. So I'll be there. Obviously, I'll be covering every single episode as they come out and everything we get building up to it. So if you want to see any of that, then be sure to subscribe and like the video. Leave a comment if you've got any video recommendations. And thank you once again. I'll see you in the next video.